Zillow has something to say about the housing market. It's a message reinforced with data accumulated by its massive real estate marketing machine, and it's also supported by data from other sources too. While many social media commentaries proclaim falling home prices as home sales decline, Zillow's data suggests something else is happening. And it's not just Zillow. Zillow is not my only source of data on the housing market, but I like to review its finding each month, as Zillow is always quick to report and often months ahead of many other real estate market data portals. Longtime viewers on our channel know that we obtain housing data from numerous sources on the internet to provide a broad, unbiased view of the housing market conditions. So if this is your first visit to our channel and you think that I'm giving credence to Zillow or its business model, that is just not the case. It's just Zillow's turn in our reporting cycle. And what a turn that Zillow has delivered. Follow me through the Zillow housing market update as it paints a clear picture that refutes what many mainstream and social media pundits say about the real estate market today. This graph reports Zillow's estimated number of unique properties sold each month, and it shows a 14-month trend has formed. The blue bars plot the number of homes sold, while the yellow bars plot the year-over-year change in sales. When the yellow bars rose above the horizontal axis, unit sales grew. When the yellow bars fell below the horizontal axis, unit sales declined. Sales through October show that for 14 straight months, home sales declined in the U.S. The study of year-over-year home sales is an important metric because it removes the influence of seasonality by comparing the same months each year. For example, the number of homes sold in October 2022 was 24% fewer than the number of homes sold in October 2021. Though this graph only contains data since 2009, I want to point out that the peak of home sales seen on the graph is far lower than the number of homes that were sold during the housing bubble formation back in 2004 through 2006. I point this out as a reminder to our viewers that recent years were not filled with the irrational exuberance that propped up the market more than 15 years ago. This is one of the primary statistics that has prompted real estate reporters to project declining prices. After all, doesn't sliding demand mean that prices will fall? As you'll see shortly, there's more to falling home prices than just declining demand. First, you might wonder why home sales have slowed for 14 months straight. I bet it's not what you think. This graph plots the average 30-year fixed mortgage interest rate since 1971, where the most recent months shed light on one reason for the recent decline in home sales. When I was preparing this graph in early December, I checked the Mortgage News Daily website, and it reported that the current rate was 6.37%, while the 1 year ago rate was 3.25%. Interest rates are nearly double a year ago, but we've seen rates decline by 13% over the last 30 days. Rising mortgage interest rates have cooled buyer demand, but can we solely blame the decline in home sales on the rise in mortgage interest rates? Here's something you don't hear from most people reporting on the housing market. Interest rates did not move above 3.3% until January of this year, yet year-over-year home sales started to slide back in September of 2021, and those sales were fueled by sub-3% mortgage interest rates in August 2021. Home sales started to slide when mortgage interest rates were at record lows, so we cannot solely blame the current housing market woes on mortgage interest rates. In fact, home sales fell for 6 months when mortgage interest rates were below 4%, so there has to be more to declining home sales than just an increase in mortgage interest rates. Viewers who remember the housing collapse in 2006 might be concerned that the supply of homes for sale is rising out of control. That happened in 2006 as builders were in full production mode while buyers were expelled from the market when the government changed lending requirements. Declining demand and rising supply created the bubble that sent home prices plummeting. Is that what we should expect in 2023? The following graphs reveal another primary cause of declining home sales and expose the potential answer for the stability of home prices. If you're a longtime subscriber, then you know I produce market reports from numerous data sources because there are so many conflicting reports on what's going on in housing. It's important to gain a consensus by pulling data from every reputable source. If you're not a subscriber, please click the thumbs up like button and subscribe now so that you get all my new content when it is fresh. If you really want to know what's going on in housing, to see and hear the data explained, to evaluate the facts, and ignore the hype porn that is so prevalent online, then subscribe now and I'll keep you in the know. Zillow reports the number of unique listings active in each month since the beginning of 2019, and what they're reporting is very different than what we saw in 2006. In this graph, the blue field plots the number of homes available each month, while the red line measures the year-over-year change in inventory. Look where the red line crosses the dashed blue line in August 2019 and again in August 2022, when the market shifted from inventory growth to inventory reduction and then back to inventory growth. I've seen a lot of discussion about the anticipation of inventory growth. However, the 1% rise in listings is a minuscule amount considering there were more than 4 million listings during the housing bubble years, yet today we're barely above 1 million listings. To be clear, today's inventory is near a historic low, and we're far from an oversupplied housing market. Those who expect the inventory to rise rapidly as sales plummet are not accounting for the source of new listings. With new construction inventory far lower than historical norms, we must rely on discretionary sellers to fulfill our inventory needs. The problem with expecting inventory growth is that most discretionary sellers are discretionary buyers too. When a buyer opts out of the market due to affordability, a discretionary seller is leaving too. This is why we're seeing lower inventory levels as demand declines. Thus, a buyer leaving the market results in a seller leaving the market in most cases. The move up and move down buyers have slowed, so inventory growth is not as many have anticipated. It is that anticipation of exploding inventory growth that is leading to the faulty assumption that home prices must fall in all local markets. This graph shows a different view of the number of listings over the past 4 years that sheds light on the reduction in inventory. The black line in the graph plots the number of listings that entered the market each month this year. Note that there are only slightly more listings than last year. The number of homes for sale remains 1% lower than last year, 14% lower than 2 years ago, and a whopping 36% lower than 3 years ago. It's important to remember that each of those years was inventory deficient as well. Today, the number of listings is far lower than in recent years, and all 4 years shown were sellers' markets, where the number of listings was far too few for the demand in the market. Demand will have to go far lower to create the supply and demand dynamic that will cause home prices to fall for an extended period. There will be markets with declining home prices because they have declining populations or hyperactive new construction activity. Still, most U.S. housing markets have a supply void that has slowed buyer activity, even when mortgage interest rates were below 4%. This graph explains today's lower inventory as it plots the number of new listings entering the market each month for the past 4 years. Even as many national news media report that home prices will crash and burn, we see the inventory drop. The only way we'll see major price declines is for supply to outrace demand, but this graph clearly shows that supply is dropping in line or even faster than demand. As of today, it is safe to report that there is no sign of growing supply problem in the overall U.S. housing market. Instead, the lack of supply will put further pressure on home prices. This graph plots the median prices at which homes across the U.S. were listed and sold. The blue field in the graph shows the median list price, while the red line shows Zillow's estimate of the median home sales price during the same period. The blue field shows a seasonal pattern on the median list price, with prices starting low at the beginning of the year, moving higher during the summer, and then falling slightly towards the end of the year. I'm seeing report of list prices dropping. Of course they are. The median list price falls at this time every year. Where were those reports in each of the last 5 years when asking prices declined in the latter part of each year? This graph reveals two things. First, home prices generally rise, so it makes sense that the end-of-year asking prices are higher than the beginning of the year asking prices. Second, sellers who tried too high of an asking price earlier in the year ultimately reduce their prices to get sold before the end of the year. Remember, a homeowner can ask any price they like, but to get sold, they have to meet the market at the right price. The red line shows there is no actual inter-year cycle for prices. home prices generally rise. The median home sales price has been rising faster for the past few years, but the declining number of sales has flattened to where prices are growing at a more normal rate. The average home price growth over the past 80 years is 5.2% annually, not the double-digit rate we've seen for the past few years. Additionally, one must remember that with higher rates, home affordability falls. One has to wonder if the slowing growth rate of the median home price means that home value growth is falling, or does it mean that buyers are purchasing less expensive homes? This graph is Zillow's estimate of the median home price, measuring the typical home price for single-family homes, condominiums, and co-ops in the United States. It reflects the typical price of homes in the 35th to 65th percentile. In other words, it approximates the median by swiping the middle third of the market and analyzing it over time. If you look closely at this graph, you'll see that Zillow has reported home values from 2000 through October of next year, because their data set includes past data plus a forecast that home values will rise 1.2% over the next 12 months. Just as a reference to how conservative Zillow's estimate has become, it estimated 17.3% annual growth 10 months ago. Zillow's Home Value Index provides a great perspective on the toxic decline in home affordability. Zillow estimates the median home price has risen more than 91% since February 2012, an annual growth rate of 6.3%. When we compare the slope of home price growth over the past 2 years to the slope of price growth during the housing bubble, it's a disturbing image, as recent price growth is far higher than we saw during the housing bubble formation. While preparing this report, I found this graph on Twitter and added it for perspective. CoreLogic, a different data source for the real estate market, believes home prices will grow by more than 4% over the next year, a level greater than 3 times the Zillow forecast. One must remember that the supply and demand dynamic for homes is the key driver for the change in home prices. Today's abysmally low supply of homes has caused home prices to soar, and as we'll see in our next graph, home prices are growing in 99.7% of the markets in Zillow's report. With so many people claiming, or perhaps hoping, for falling home prices, I'm wondering if they are even monitoring what's going on across the U.S. This graph reports all metropolitan markets where the year-over-year change in home prices grew by 25% or more. Of the 893 cities reported by Zillow, 890 posted growth in home prices for the past 12 months. Only 3 markets reported declines. Boise City, Idaho was down 3.2%, Fairbanks, Alaska is down 6.8%, and Minot, North Dakota is down 8.1%. Overall, Zillow reports the year-over-year home price in the U.S. has risen 13.5% since October 2021, but I'm sure some of our viewers will want to say, that's not what I'm hearing elsewhere. So let's dig a little deeper into why we're seeing so many reports of falling home prices. This graph reports the U.S. markets where the month-over-month change in home prices was the highest. Of the 893 cities reported by Zillow, 761, or more than 85%, posted growth in home prices for the past month, while only 132 markets, that's fewer than 15%, reported declines. Perhaps this is why we're inundated with reports of declining home prices. If you have seen some of my recent reports on U.S. home prices, then you know that it is common for the median home price to stagger step higher throughout the year, or stagger step lower in a declining market. We really can't call price change trends after a few months, because if we did, we would have reported declines in each of the past 5 years, years when the median home price soared at double-digit rates. It is clear that the rate of growth for home prices is coming down, but it is still too early to say that we expect home prices to fall annually in most U.S. housing markets. With 99% of markets reporting annual gains and 85% showing monthly gains, the overall U.S. housing market is appreciating. The final graph in today's Zillow Housing Update measures what Zillow refers to as the typical observed market rental rate, and like its Home Value Index, takes a swipe from the middle of the market rents to approximate the median rental rate over time. The blue area measures the rental rate index each month, the median rent, while the red line plots the year-over-year percentage change each month. After peaking at more than a 17% annual growth rate in February, rents have only grown by 9.6% over the past 12 months. Just as the inventory of homes for sale declined, so too has the number of homes for rent. People who must move today have no good choice between buying versus renting a home. The cost for each has exploded higher, though each is rising slower than the rates observed at the beginning of the year. In October, the median rental rate of $2,040 was nearly 10% higher than the median rental rate of $1,861 recorded in October of last year. This is important to understand because it is not just home prices that have become unaffordable, so have rental rates. I often receive comments from viewers saying they're waiting for home prices to fall. I certainly understand the sentiment, but I have to wonder, where are they living while they're awaiting home price declines? Are they waiting in a rental property where their lease renewal will be 10% higher this year after rising even greater last year? Or are they waiting in a home they own? If they're right and home prices drop, won't the home they own drop in value too? This means they'll sell cheaper to buy cheaper? So what's the point in waiting? That's the trouble with trying to time the housing market. Either way, you'll pay more. The fact that both rents and prices are moving higher together confirms that the supply of homes in the U.S. is insufficient to house our growing population. Overall, when supply is insufficient to fulfill demand, prices rise. Until we see significant output from U.S. home builders, we should continue to anticipate rising prices and rising rents. There will be markets where the supply of homes outpaces demand, but overall, the U.S. housing market remains undersupplied. Home affordability is a pressing issue today. When people get priced out of the for sale market, they can no longer turn to the for rent market, as they will be priced out of that too. When home prices crashed after the housing bubble, rents kept moving higher. That was a sign that we failed to interpret correctly, as it was a signal that despite the large inventory of homes for sale, there were not too many homes built in America. The plummeting demand in the for sale market that created the inventory imbalance was manufactured by the government involvement that took away loan options for nearly all but the wealthiest of borrowers. Loan qualification standards were pushed far higher than ever in the past by a government intent on slowing a perceived out-of-control housing market. Loan qualification standards are not an issue today. The majority of the housing crisis can be blamed on the inventory side. It is up to local governments to work to solve the lack of shelter problem. The rise and dominance of the NIMBYism movement must be quelled, and we need to find solutions to increasing the number of properties to house our growing population. The problem is simple to define but very difficult to cure. It will take a level of leadership that most elected officials do not possess. You can do your part to fix our housing problem. Reach out to your local elected officials and tell them that you are not okay with soaring home prices and rents. Let them know it is purely a supply-side issue, one that requires a different plan of attack if we are to cure the shelter imbalance in America. If you have thoughts on the limited housing supply in America, please share them in the comments section below. If you want to see a video featuring my 9 tips for buying a home in a highly competitive market, you can view it by clicking on the box in the top left corner of your screen. To see a popular video featuring my top 6 home selling tips, just click on the box below it. Please remember to like this video, check out the links below it, and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss anything.